Warner Brothers has made some major decisions in the last week around their studios, their streaming, and specifically their gaming divisions. We're going to get into exactly what they've stated and what it means for the future of not only Warner Brothers streaming, movies, TV shows, and games, but also possibly a suitor in Sony. We're going to do that right now. Welcome to the Sundowners Club. We've been covering all things Game of Thrones and a lot of other content that has appeared on HBO and Warner Brothers through their streaming and movie division. And there was an announcement this week that Warner Brothers has split off into two groups. And the Warner Brothers Games has set a new leadership team and restructured their operations into divisions based on 4 key franchises, and they've scrapped everything else in games. Those key franchises are Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, thank God, Mortal Kombat, and DC Universe. And so, per Warner Brothers Discovery, the 3 current studio heads, and I've got this article, there are several sites that have covered it. Want to give credit to MSN.com and Jennifer Moss, who wrote the latest article. So go check out her column. Want to give her credit here as I quote her. Per Warner Brothers Discovery, their 3 current studio heads have been promoted to the role of senior vice president as part of the restructure. The Warner Brothers Games Montreal studio head, LaChance, has been promoted to senior vice president of development, overseeing the development of Harry Potter and Game of Thrones. And then NetherRealm Studio, which my co-host Sterling, you know a little bit about.
Yeah, they make mostly fighting games. That's all they do. Mortal Kombat, Injustice, strictly fighting games.
I loved Injustice. NetherRealm Studio head Sean Hemrick has been promoted to Senior Vice President of Development, overseeing Mortal Kombat, as you mentioned, and DC Games. And then they go on to talk about a few other chiefs that are dealing with publishing and technology that will report up to those 2 individuals ultimately. And so first, let me stop right there. So my co-host Sterling, is this a good decision to split off Warner Brothers and have the streaming and studio and gaming with the other part of the company? And they split it basically. Warner Brothers streaming and studios will be led by David Zaslav, who everybody knows, who had a major pay cut in his bonuses this week of millions. And they split it off from Warner Brothers Global Networks, which will be headed by the CFO, Gunnar Wiedenfelds. The split puts the games division under the streaming and studios company, and it's going to be expected to be complete by mid-year next year, 2026. So first of all, is this a good decision? What do you think about the focus on the 4 franchises?
Well, I think those are the 4 franchises you need to focus on. The issue is they've had focus on those franchises already. They've just done a terrible job with them.
Tell me what you mean by terrible job.
Well, Game of Thrones has pretty much been regulated to terrible mobile games.
Oh, yeah, nobody. I don't even know anybody playing the mobile apps. I see these commercials, and they do a teaser, and it looks great, and then you go,
and you see the game, and it's really disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could do big budget games on console and PC that would be, it could be huge.
Follow the Hogwarts Legacy model.
Yeah.
That's a great game where they could expand and world build. Do the same thing with Game of Thrones, right?
And speaking of the 4 franchises, that's the only thing they got right in games was Harry Potter in terms of success. You have the DC Universe. Of course, you had years ago, you had the Arkham Universe, which is, one of the best comic universes ever realized in gaming, if not the best. And they've just absolutely destroyed that with Suicide Squad, which was a live service game that flopped, lost them over $200 million, was an absolute disaster.
Where they killed Batman, and then we found out later that...
Well, they ended up all being clones.
So stupid.
But so it ends up just being a completely pointless game from a story standpoint. But regardless, no one wanted to play as those characters, and no one wanted to play that kind of game. So
do the Arkham stuff. Do Game of Thrones like a Hogwarts Legacy. You've got these characters, and you've got world building. Bring in these games where you can constantly make changes and additions, where you do new missions, new enhancements to the world, and just keep building upon it when you have something that works.
I agree. And finally, you have Mortal Kombat, which the last entry was their worst selling entry, and me personally, I didn't like it that much. either. It was a weird reboot. It had some tag mechanics. MKX and MK11 I thought were great games, but I thought this was a big step back. And I also think it's a little bit of franchise fatigue. I think they need to give Mortal Kombat a break for a little bit, maybe focus on another Injustice and let Mortal Kombat take a break for about 5 or 6 years.
So the streaming and the gaming division is going to report to David Zaslav, but he took a major haircut in his bonus.
He deserves a big pay. He doesn't deserve
Absolutely deserves it.
I mean, like he inherited a disaster. I mean, we did a video on this about a month ago.
Nothing to make it better.
And has done nothing to make it better.
So here's the question. He gets this major pay cut, and now they're split the companies in two, moving debt around, right? And the focus on the gaming and the streaming. And that's going to take place in mid-2026. But we're going to come back to David Zaslav in just a second because there could be somebody that wants to buy the streaming and gaming division, and that is Sony.
Oh.
And so if Sony steps in, I think David Zaslav is out, don't you?
Oh, he's definitely out.
He's 100% out.
I mean, that's a Japanese company, so I mean, they'll
He'd
probably
be gone.
they would probably have a Western person lead it anyways, but it wouldn't be him.
So does that mean we would get a Game of Thrones game on the PS5?
Yeah, I mean, probably get it exclusively to the PS5 for a while, and then it would be brought to PC or something later. But yeah, I think that would be if Sony's kind of mismanaged their properties as well, focusing on live service and a lot of dumb things. But
Right.
they have the potential. I mean, they have a lot of great studios. If they were able to make some big budget first party games, that would be huge. I think for PlayStation especially, but really gaming in general, because they've just butchered these franchises. If you asked me 10 years ago, I think it'd be a match made in heaven, but now they've both kind of fumbled the ball. So it's a little worrying right now.
Yeah, and of course, the reports that we're seeing online through MSN and others have talked about, Sony is only interested in if Warner agrees to sell the assets separately.
And that could be a major roadblock because the global networks is like, I believe that's like the TNT, the TBS, the TV stations that now at this day and age have no value. Well, yeah, they have no value anymore. And
of course, Sony doesn't want them because they have all the debt and all the legacy stuff.
But they're gonna want to unload that. I don't know if they're gonna be willing to keep that.
So it looks like Sony's willing to acquire Warner Brothers streaming and studios only if it's detached from Warner Brothers Global Networks.
Which would mean Sony would own DC. They would own Batman. They would own Superman.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, although Game of Thrones, I still think is George R. R. Martin, right? He just lightens it out. But they would own that contract.
They would
most
own
likely.
the contracts.
Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, because HBO bought
yeah.
that. So they would be a big deal. And they have their own picture studios already, so that would be huge.
Yeah, and Warner Brothers, the Global Networks, is taking on $37 billion of Discovery's debt.
I think it'd be a smart move for Sony if they managed it right. I think it could be huge.
Yeah. So the focus on that, it's very interesting what's going to happen with the split, the focus on the games and those franchises, and trying to get back to profitability. What happens with David Zaslav? If Sony steps in, he's gone. I think he may be gone anyway, because the pay cut he just took means they don't have confidence, or they're punishing him.
I think this Superman movie is going to have a lot's
riding on Superman, which we're going to go see in July. I'm excited for it.
We made a video about a month ago saying that this could make or break Warner Brothers, and I think that holds true now.
It's tracking for around $100 million opening weekend, which is fine if people come walking out of the theater and they say it's good.
And it doesn't have a massive drop off.
Yes, it's got to have, Sinners was different because it was one of those less budgeted movie that had huge word of mouth, and it kind of gained steam. And I think it only dropped like 20% the next week, which is crazy.
This has a lot bigger budget, though.
Yeah, this has a bigger budget, and it's going to be more top heavy. But at the end of the day, it's got to have good word of mouth. Whether it makes a profit or not, as much as they spend on it, I don't know that is as important as it's got to be seen as successful, which to me means you've got to be over 700 million global. That's not going to mean it makes any money, but it at least gets you enough to say, hey, we're in that Batman range, the new Batman.
Which they were happy. They were happy with that, I believe.
They were happy with Batman was a little under 800 million, and they were happy with it. So I think if it gets to 800 million, they're good. If it gets to 900, 950, they're ecstatic. And so a lot's riding on Superman, but we wanted to bring you this. What do you think about the split of the games division and the streaming from Warner Brothers Global? The franchises they're focusing on, do you think there's something else that they should be focusing on? What do you think about the future of potentially Sony purchasing Warner Brothers? And what do you think about the new Superman movie? You're going to go see it? Do you think that everything is riding on that for the future of Warner Brothers and DC? There's a lot to think about. Give us your feedback. What do you think? While you're doing that, do us a big favor. Smash that like button. Share this video out with your friends. And most importantly, hit subscribe so we can continue to grow our channel and TCB.